Hello and welcome to the lecture series on power electronics. In today's lecture, we will be talking about the application of power electronics in solar PV generation system. Okay, so before moving into the actual application of power electronics in solar PV generation system, I would like to talk about some background about the renewable energy system, and then I would be moving to the importance of solar PV generation system, and then finally how power electronics nowadays is being used in solar PV generation system to extract power out of it. Okay, so let's start. Let me start with talking about the energy need. So energy need or energy demand throughout the world is increasing exponentially, especially the developing countries like the countries that are in Asia. The energy demand is exponentially increasing. So to meet those the demand, we basically are utilizing fossil fuels. So most of our energy demand is met by using the fossil fuel resources. But there are certain issues associated with fossil fuel based resources for meeting the energy demand, and I would be talking about them. So what are the shortcomings or what are the problems with fossil fuel based energy generation system? The first problem is linked to the availability. So by availability I mean they are not going to last forever. So be it coal or oil or natural gas or any type of fossil fuel based resource that isn't going to last forever. So it has got it is present in limited amount, and with the present rate of consumption it is actually feared that they aren't going to last for more than 200 or 250 years. Okay, and even some other resources like oil is going to exhaust even much earlier. Okay, so this is a problem, a big problem. So the utilization or the use of the resources, natural resources, should be judicious, and the future generation should not be we should not use it such a way that the future generation is devoid of these resources. Okay, this is called sustainable development. So developing with these concerns in mind. Okay, the next issue is related to pollution, and pollution has got multiple effects, one being the health of the population, the masses. So we already are seeing health related issues and the pollution is posing. So the world has now become more conscious about the health issues of pollution, and therefore the world governments and the leaders are being forced to think over alternative ways of generating electricity or meeting the energy demand. So that is why we are seeing a big push in the area of renewable resources like the solar based resources or the wind based resources. Okay, the second issue is global warming. So this is also an ill effect of pollution. So we know that the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, if it exceeds a certain limit, then the temperature of the earth it actually increases. So increases to a point of no return actually. it is projected if the average global temperature of the planet, if it goes above 2 degrees Celsius, right now I think it is 1.5 or something, but if it goes beyond 2, it is irreversible, the process is irreversible, and that causes melting of the ice caps at the poles and subsequent submerging of the land, the cities which are near to the coast. Okay? And people are already raising these issues. Even some of the governments that in Maldives is an island, small island, and they are especially facing this problem of rise of the sea level. So these are the issues related to indiscriminate use of fossil fuel based energy generation system. But these issues haven't been heated up till 2 decades from now, when there was a problem related to this third point, which I will be explaining, the monopoly. So one thing is that the resources, the natural resources, the fossil fuel based natural resources are not available forever. The other thing, they are not available uniformly throughout the world. Some of the region of the world is having some of the resources in abundance, while rest of the countries are not having it even to meet their domestic demand. So they depend on other countries to import such resources to meet their demand. So this creates basically an imbalance or a crisis, because it creates a monopoly for those countries who have got these resources in abundance. Okay, and times it even lead to conflict, because the powerful countries which aren't rich in these resources, they try to influence those countries, poor countries, which are actually having these resources in abundance. And we have already seen all these things happening around the world in the past also, and it's going on right now also. So this has actually forced the world government to think of alternative ways of generating electricity, so as to meet the growing energy demand locally of the population, the growing population, and also to have a sustainable development, and also not to depend on other countries for meeting the energy demand. Okay. So with this background in mind, so let us now move to the need for green energy. Okay. And so the energy resources out of sun and wind, and there are other resources which are basically categorized as green energy resources or non-conventional energy resources or renewable energy resources. There are multiple terminologies used, okay, and they are being looked upon as the future source of energy generation. Why? Number one, there is no limited availability of this resource. Okay, so the basic powerhouse of the resource is the sun. Okay, wind flow because of sun only. Okay, and there are other resources which actually are there because of sun, and sun is going to last up till whenever Allah wish. Okay, so it is not going to just exhaust in near future, at least. Okay, so so this issue of availability of resource is not there if we are depending our energy need on these resources. Okay, then the second problem which was of pollution is also not there with these two resources. Actually, I am focusing on these two resources because these are the major natural resources which are in abundance available throughout the world. Okay, so although there are others also. So second one is pollution, and this problem is again not there when we are utilizing these resources for meeting the energy demand. The third problem of monopoly is also not there, because most of the time throughout the year and almost in all the countries we would have these resources available. Okay, so only a judicious use of these resources is required, that's all, and proper technology in place, and we can just get away with the fossil fuel based system, although not in 10 years or 20 years. It may take maybe few decades to actually move entirely from the fossil fuel based generation system to the renewable energy based generation system. Okay. Now my focus of discussion in today's lecture is basically this: solar PV generation system. So solar PV based generation system, it can be used in two ways: either utilizing the heat content of the sunlight, and that is done by way of solar thermal energy system. Solar thermal energy system. So we could have big power plants based on this concept of solar thermal energy, wherein the sunlight is allowed to fall on some parabolic dishes, and that light is focused on fuel system which is at the top of a tower, and that is heated and converted into steam, and that steam is used to run the turbine. So that is the basic philosophy of this solar thermal energy generation system, and that is for actually a bigger level. We are using the thermal energy system for at smaller scale also, even for cooking also. The second way is to directly convert the sunlight into DC electricity. Okay, DC electricity. That is by way of photovoltaic generation system. So that is a good thing about solar PV generation system, that there is no intermediary step in converting sunlight into electricity. So it gets directly converted into electricity. Okay. Now let me talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages of the solar PV system, and then finally we will move to the role of power electronics in solar PV system. Okay. So solar PV, if I talk about what are the various technologies that are available in solar PV system. So we have basically got monocrystalline technology, and based on that monocrystalline solar PV system or PV array or panel, and then we have polycrystalline, and the third one is your thin film, and more recently we have got organic solar cells. Okay. Typical efficiency of monocrystalline solar PV cells, it lie in between 20 to 25%. Okay. While that of a polycrystalline solar PV cell, it is in the region of 10 to 15%, while thin film has got less than 10%, and organic solar cell even has less than 6%. So highest efficiency is of monocrystalline technology, but it is the costliest. Okay. And that is the reason why organic solar cells are being developed, although the efficiency achieved is quite less. So at this point, let me talk about the term efficiency here in terms of solar PV cell. So by efficiency, we define efficiency as the electrical power that is generated from the solar PV cell and the incident solar insolation or incident solar light. Okay. So the amount of sunlight that is being falling on the panel area or the cell area, and the amount of electricity that is being generated out of it. So the ratio of the two is, and you multiply it by 100. So it typically comes out to these values for these types of technologies. Okay. Although it is quite less, and researches are going on to improve upon the efficiency by taking better what we call the material that are used for the construction of the cell. Okay. But if you see that the input that is being given to the solar cell is actually free of cost. The sunlight, it is available free of cost, and we are getting electricity out of nothing. Okay. So just an investment in the solar cell, and that's all, and we are getting electricity out of it. Fuel cost is 0. Moreover, the maintenance cost for a solar PV plant, if I talk about large power plant, for that it is very less. Okay. So that means very viable option for energy generation, solar PV system. Okay. Fine. Now let me just talk about the issues that are related to solar PV generation system. So you see that what are the issues? So one of the issues that I talked about was the efficiency, but as a electrical engineer, that should not concern us much, because we are more interested in what is happening after electricity has been generated. Okay. So that part of electricity generation, it is being looked upon by scientists who are working in the area of solid state physics and all those. Okay. So basically it's an area of material science and all those things. Anyway, so the second part is utilization of that generated electricity efficiently. Okay. So I would be talking about it in my next lecture in detail. Okay. Right now just give you a brief overview. A brief overview of solar PV generation system in India, what is the status right now. So in India, because of the programs like National Solar Mission, it has given a big boost to the renewable energy resources, development of renewable energy resources in India. And by way of this mission or program, India intends to generate around 100 gigawatts of electricity from solar PV alone. Okay, so that is a big number, because if you see the total amount of installed capacity in India is around 375 gigawatts, something around this, not exact figure. So compared to this 100 gigawatts, almost coming one fourth of the generation from solar PV alone. That's a big number. And those people who are in the area of working in the area of planning and area of actually knowing the actual potential of solar PV in India, they have calculated that if judiciously used, India has a potential to generate around 750 gigawatts of electricity from solar PV alone. Okay, so that is a big number. So that is why Indian government has even given a big push to generate electricity out of solar PV. Okay. So this was just for information. Okay, and we would be looking into the use of power electronics in our next lecture, and hope you liked the lecture. Thank you.